Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crossroads Stories. Today, we've got a story that feels like a fever dream, the kind that starts with a tropical paradise and ends with a cold dose of reality. We all know the cliche, right? The successful American guy retires, packs up his life in California, and moves to Thailand to live like a king. He meets a beautiful, younger woman, lives in a villa, and spends his days drinking mango smoothies on the beach. It's the expat dream. Well, today's OP, a guy named Jake, thought he was living that dream. But as he found out, if you ignore the red flags because the view is too pretty, you're eventually going to walk right off a cliff. Jake sent this in, and honestly, the way he handled the fallout is legendary. It involved a specific phrase his wife used against him, a phrase that ended up being the match that burned her entire world down while he walked away in slow motion. It's a masterclass in malicious compliance. Before we dive into this chaotic saga of betrayal in the land of smiles, do me a favor. Hit that like button like it owes you money, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the tea. All right, grab your popcorn. Here is Jake's story in his own words. If you've never stepped off a plane in southern Thailand, let me explain the heat to you. It doesn't just warm you up, it hugs you. It's a heavy, wet, jasmine-scented embrace that instantly melts the stiff, corporate anxiety right out of your shoulders. When I sold my software startup in Palo Alto at 42, that heat was exactly what I was looking for. I was done with 60-hour weeks, done with quarterly projections, and absolutely done with traffic on the 101. I moved to a villa on the coast of Phuket. It was the kind of place that would have cost me $10 million back in California, but here, it was just a reasonable monthly expense. Infinity pool, floor-to-ceiling glass, and a view of the Andaman Sea that looked like a screensaver. I thought I'd hacked life. I thought I had won the game. And then I met Annan. We met in the most cliché way possible, the kind of story that makes other expats roll their eyes. I was at a beach club, nursing a gin and tonic, and looking like exactly what I was, a retired American trying too hard to relax. Annan walked in, and the humidity seemed to vanish. She was 26, with long dark hair and a smile that could convince a man to sign over his life insurance policy. She wasn't just beautiful, she was attentive. In California, dating felt like a job interview where I was constantly being evaluated on my earning potential and social standing. With Annan, it felt like I was the only person in the world. We moved in together 3 months later. For the first 2 years, it was paradise. I wasn't stupid, though. Or at least, I told myself I wasn't. I knew there was a transactional element to our relationship. I was the provider. I paid for the villa, the groceries, the shopping sprees, and the brand new SUV she insisted was safer for the roads. I paid for her sick buffalo. For those of you who don't know the local expat lore, the sick buffalo is the universal code for my family in the village needs money for a problem that doesn't exist. Sometimes it was a broken roof, sometimes it was a sick grandmother, sometimes it was actual livestock. I paid it all. I looked at it as a subscription fee for happiness. I was a retired tech guy. I understood the SaaS model. You pay the monthly fee, you get the premium service. And the service was great. Annan made sure the house was spotless, the fridge was full, and that I felt like a king in my own castle. But about 6 months ago, the service started buffering. It started small. Annan, who used to leave her phone on the coffee table unlocked, started carrying it with her everywhere. I mean everywhere. If she went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, the phone went with her. If she went to the bathroom, the phone went with her. She started angling the screen away from me when we sat on the couch, tilting it with the precision of a secret agent protecting nuclear codes. Then came the trips up north. She told me her mother was getting older and needed help with the harvest. I didn't ask why a 70-year-old woman was harvesting rice by hand when I'd sent enough money to buy a combined harvester, but I let it slide. Annan would disappear for 3 or 4 days at a time. She'd come back looking tired but happy, showering me with affection, likely to distract me from the credit card alerts that popped up on my phone from restaurants that were definitely not in a farming village. I tried to ignore it. I really did. I wanted to protect the fantasy. I didn't want to be the jealous older husband. I wanted to be the cool, detached Californian who was above such petty insecurities. but I spent 20 years in software development. My entire career was built on pattern recognition, and the pattern was screaming at me. The breaking point was a Tuesday in November. Annan came into my office, the spare room I use for gaming and managing my investments, around noon. She was dressed modestly, wearing a long skirt and a white blouse. She looked angelic. "Jake," she said, her voice soft. "I go to the temple tonight. With my sisters. Big festival. Make merit for good luck. We stay at my sister's house tonight. Okay? Come back morning." "Sounds fun," I said, not looking up from my monitor. "Need cash." "Little bit," she smiled. I gave her the equivalent of $200. She kissed me on the cheek, smelling of expensive shampoo, and bounced out of the room. Around 8 p.m., I sat on the balcony with a beer, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My tech brain started itching. See, a few months prior, I had installed a family safety app on our phones. I told Annan it was for emergencies, in case her car broke down in the middle of nowhere. She had agreed to it, probably assuming I was too lazy to actually check it. I opened the app. I expected to see her location at one of the local temples. There are plenty of them, usually buzzing with lights and chanting monks this time of evening. The blue dot on the map was nowhere near a temple. She was 40 miles south, at a place called the Azure Bay Resort. I knew the place. It wasn't a place for making merit or praying. It was a place known for pool parties, overpriced vodka buckets, and tourists looking to make bad decisions. I zoomed in. The GPS was precise. She was in one of the private bungalows. I sat there for a long time, watching the blue dot. It didn't move. I refreshed the app. Still there. I checked her credit card activity. A charge for room service at 7:45 p.m. 2 orders of steak and a bottle of wine. Unless her sister had developed a sudden taste for imported Cabernet and medium-rare ribeye while praying, my subscription to the premium package had just been canceled. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone into the pool. I just felt a cold, hard clarity wash over me. The humidity suddenly felt oppressive, heavy, and suffocating. The fantasy was dead. The transaction was void. I took a sip of my beer, closed the laptop, and decided to wait. I needed to see how she played this. I needed to see if she would insult my intelligence to my face. Spoiler alert, she did. I sat on the living room sofa in the dark, like a villain in a low-budget noir film. The only light came from the LED display on the microwave, blinking 4:47 a.m. I hadn't moved in 6 hours. My legs were asleep, but my mind was running a marathon. At 4:52 a.m., the front door lock beeped. Annan stumbled in, bringing a gust of humid night air with her. She wasn't wearing the modest, white blouse anymore. She was wearing a tank top I'd never seen before, and the skirt was hiked up. She dropped her keys on the counter with a clatter that sounded like a gunshot in the silent house. She froze when she saw my silhouette on the couch. "Jake," she whispered, squinting. "Why you up? Aircon broke." "No," I said, my voice sounding raspy. "Just waiting for the temple report." "How is the merit making?" She relaxed instantly, kicking off her sandals. The audacity was almost impressive. "Oh, very good. Monks chant long time. Very holy. We sleep at sister's house, but, mosquitoes too many. So I come home." She walked past me toward the bedroom, and the scent hit me. It wasn't sandalwood or incense. It was a potent mix of stale cigarette smoke, sweat, and a men's cologne that smelled like desperation for men. It was the kind of cheap, musky scent a 20-year-old backpacker wears to mask the fact that he hasn't done laundry in 3 weeks. "Annan," I said, stopping her. "I know you weren't at the temple." She turned around, hand on her hip, ready to act confused. "What you mean?" "I tell you, I know you were at Azure Bay Resort." I cut in, holding on my phone. The blue dot on the screen was damning. "I know you ordered steak and wine at 8 p.m. And judging by the smell coming off you, you didn't eat that steak alone." I expected tears. I expected a sob story about how she made a mistake, how she was lonely, how it was just one time. I was prepared for the waterworks. I had a mental script ready for forgiveness, or at least a discussion about therapy. But Annan didn't cry. She laughed. A cold, sharp laugh. "You track me," she scoffed, her face twisting into a sneer I didn't recognize. You spy on me like I am criminal? I checked to make sure you were safe because you didn't come home, I said calmly. Who is he? Doesn't matter, she shouted. Her sweet village girl, mask completely dissolved. You think because you pay for house, you own me? You think you're my boss? I think as your husband, I deserve to know why you're smelling like a frat party at 5 a.m. She took a step toward me, eyes blazing. I am young, Jake. I want fun. You sit home, watch Netflix, drink beer. Boring. I go out. I have life. You cheated, I stated flatly. Then came the line that saved my life. She threw her hands up, looking at me with pure disdain. I am not your employee, Jake. I don't owe you explanations for where I go or who I see. You just pay the bills. That is your job. The air in the room seemed to freeze. She stood there, breathing heavy, waiting for me to yell back. She wanted a fight. She wanted passion. She wanted me to beg. Instead, a switch flipped in my brain. It was the same feeling I used to get when a project I was coding had a critical failure that couldn't be patched. You don't argue with the code. You don't yell at the server. You terminate the process. Understood, I said. That was it. Just one word. She looked confused for a split second, then rolled her eyes. Good. I go shower. Don't talk to me. She stomped into the bedroom and slammed the bathroom door. A moment later, I heard the shower running. She was washing off the night, washing off the other guy, confident that I would be sitting there like a sad puppy when she came out, ready to apologize for spying on her. I stood up. My knees popped. I walked into the bedroom. She was humming in the shower. I went to the closet and pulled down my 2 heavy-duty travel duffels, the ones I use for diving gear. I didn't pack clothes. Clothes are replaceable. I packed the things that matter. Laptop. External hard drives containing my life's work. Passport. The stash of emergency US dollars I kept in the safe behind the painting. My physical crypto wallet. My granddad's watch. I moved with the silent efficiency of a cat burglar. I swept the dresser. Sunglasses, noise-canceling headphones, chargers. I left every single thing she had ever bought me. I left the shirts she picked out. I left the wedding ring on the nightstand. Then I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. We had a joint account for household expenses, a pot I kept filled with about $50,000 for her shopping, the bills, and the sick buffalo. I transferred every cent of it out back into my primary U.S. holding account. I paused. That felt petty. I transferred $500 back into the account, enough for a week of groceries and maybe a taxi to her parents' house. I wasn't a monster. I was just conducting a layoff. The shower turned off. My heart hammered against my ribs. I zipped the bags. I didn't have much time. Jake, she called out from the bathroom. Bring me towel. I forgot. Sure, I muttered to the empty room. I grabbed the keys to the villa and the keys to the SUV I had bought her. I placed them gently on the kitchen counter next to her purse. I walked out the front door, closing it softly behind me. The humidity hit me again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt like oxygen. I walked down the driveway to the main road. I didn't take the car. I didn't want her to have the satisfaction of reporting it stolen. I had already used a ride-sharing app to call a car while I was packing. A beat-up sedan pulled up 2 minutes later. The driver looked sleepy. Airport? He asked. Yeah, I said, throwing my bags in the back. Airport, and step on it. As we drove away, I looked back at the villa on the hill. The lights were on. She was probably wrapping herself in a towel right now, walking out to the bedroom, ready to start round 2 of the argument. She was about to find an empty room, empty closets, and an empty bank account. I didn't owe her an explanation. I was just following the rules she set. The Phuket International Airport at 6 a.m. is a unique circle of hell. It's filled with hungover tourists in elephant pants, families screaming at each other in 5 different languages, and me, a 42-year-old man clutching 2 duffel bags like they contain the nuclear launch codes. I bought a ticket to Chiang Mai at the counter. I didn't care about the price. I just needed to go north, away from the islands, away from the beach clubs, and definitely away from the humidity that now felt like it was coated in lies. When I landed in the north, the air was different. It was crisp. It didn't smell like salt and sunscreen. It smelled like burning wood and ancient dust. I rented a pickup truck, a beat-up Toyota Hilux that looked like it had survived 3 coup d'etats. and just started driving. I didn't stay in the city. The city had malls and Starbucks, and frankly, I wasn't ready to reintegrate into civilization. I drove toward Pai. For those uninitiated in Thai geography, the road to Pai is famous. It has 762 curves over about 80 miles. It's a vomit-inducing serpentine road that winds through the mountains, designed to test the suspension of your car and the contents of your stomach. Most people take it for the scenery. I took it because I needed to focus on something other than the image of Annan's blue GPS sitting in a resort bungalow. You can't think about your wife cheating on you when you're trying not to drive off a cliff at every hairpin turn. I found a place just outside of town. It wasn't a villa. It was a wooden bungalow on stilts overlooking a rice paddy. No air conditioning, just a fan that clicked rhythmically like a metronome. The bathroom was outside. The shower was cold. It cost me about $12 a night. It was perfect. I threw my bags on the floor and sat on the small wooden deck. A gecko the size of a banana stared at me from the ceiling beam. I named him Steve. Steve was my new roommate. He didn't ask for money, and he probably didn't have a secret boyfriend at a resort. I liked Steve immediately. Then, I did the thing I'd been dreading for 12 hours. I turned my phone back on. My phone vibrated so hard and for so long, I thought it was going to explode. The notifications cascaded down the screen like a waterfall of digital panic. 47 missed calls. 83 unread messages. I poured myself a glass of warm water, no fridge yet, and started scrolling. It was a fascinating case study in the 5 stages of grief delivered via text message. Stage 1, confusion, 5:15 a.m. Jake, where you go? Car gone. Joke not funny. Come back now. I make breakfast. Where are you? Stage 2, denial, 6:30 a.m. You go to 7 to 11? Why take bags? Pick up phone. Signal bad. Stage 3, anger, 8:45 a.m. You leave me? I call police. You steal my car. Technically, the car was in my name, paid for by me, but logic wasn't her strong suit. You are childish. I do nothing wrong. You crazy American. Stage 4, bargaining, 11 a.m. Baby, please. Sorry I yell. I love you. We talk. I cook for you. My mom call. She ask about you. She's sick again. Need medicine. Please send 5,000. I actually laughed out loud at that one. The buffalo was sick again. Even in the middle of a marital collapse, the family emergency invoice still arrived on time. You had to admire the consistency. Stage 5, threats, 2 p.m. My brother police. He fined you. You cannot leave me. I have rights. I didn't reply to a single one. I didn't want to give her the oxygen. In my old life as a developer, when a server was compromised by a virus, you didn't try to negotiate with the virus. You disconnected the server from the network. I pulled the SIM card out of my phone and snapped it in half. It felt incredibly satisfying, like snapping a breadstick. I tossed the pieces into the tall grass below the deck. Steve the gecko watched me judgmentally, or maybe he was just hungry. The next morning, I drove into town to an internet cafe. Yes, they still exist, and hired a lawyer in Bangkok. I found a firm that specialized in expat dissolution. Apparently, I wasn't their first client to pull the ghost protocol. We had a video call. The lawyer, a sharp Thai woman named Kun Mei, listened to my story without blinking. So, she said, adjusting her glasses. You left everything? Everything, I said. Furniture, electronics, clothes. She can keep the toaster. And the house. Lease is in my name, paid through the end of the month. Cancel the renewal. Send the landlord a notification that I have vacated. If she stays past the 31st, that's an issue between her and the landlord. And the car. It's in my name, I said. But honestly, I don't want to see it again. Tell her she can keep it if she assumes the insurance payments. If not, tell the repo guys where to find it. I sent you the GPS coordinates. You are very efficient, Mr. Jake, May said, almost smiling. I used to build systems for a living, I told her. When the system is corrupted, you reformat the drive. I spent the next 2 weeks in that bungalow. The silence was the hardest part. In Phuket, there was always noise, traffic, music, and in watching TikToks at full volume. Here, there was just the wind and the crickets. I realized during those long nights that I hadn't just been scammed. I had been a willing participant. I had bought into the fantasy because I was lonely. I wanted to be the hero, the provider, the rich guy. I had ignored the red flags because they didn't fit the code I wanted to write. I was a wallet with a pulse. That's all I was to her. And the moment the wallet closed, the relationship evaporated. It was a harsh pill to swallow, sitting there eating sticky rice and grilled pork on a plastic stool. But it was the medicine I needed. I started running again, just jogging along the dirt roads, dodging chickens and stray dogs. I stopped drinking beer. I drank water. I read books. Real books, made of paper. I was rebooting. One afternoon, about 3 weeks in, I got an email from Kamei. Subject, lease terminated. Dear Jake, the landlord has inspected the property. The keys were found on the counter. The occupant, Anin, was removed by security after attempting to take the television mounted to the wall. The lease is closed. You are free. I closed the laptop. I looked out at the mountains. For the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel the crushing weight of suspicion. I was free, broke in terms of furniture, single, and living in a hut, but free. Well, Steve, I said to the gecko, looks like we're staying a while. Steve just blinked. He was a good listener. If you want to disappear in Thailand, you go to the mountains. But if you want to start living again, you go to the water. 2 years after the Great Escape, I was living in Krabi. But this wasn't the luxury villa lifestyle of Phuket. I wasn't the guy ordering bottle service at the beach club anymore. I was the guy driving a beat-up Honda Scoopy with a basket on the front, wearing a t-shirt that cost $3, and living in a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery. And honestly, I had never been happier. I had shed about 20 pounds of executive bloat and the cortisol puffiness that comes from living with a cheater. My daily routine was simple. Wake up at 6 a.m., swim a mile in the ocean before the tourists woke up, work for 4 hours on some freelance consulting projects, just enough to keep the brain sharp and the bank account steady, and then spend the afternoon reading or hiking. I had become a ghost of my former self, but in a good way. The ATM on legs was dead. The new Jake was frugal, suspicious, and fiercely protective of his peace. Then I met Dao. I was at a used bookstore in town, a dusty little place that smelled like old paper and coffee. I was trying to find a sci-fi novel that wasn't part 4 of a series I hadn't started. You're looking in the wrong section, a voice said. I turned around. Standing there was a woman, maybe 32, wearing a simple linen dress and holding a stack of textbooks. She wasn't wearing heavy makeup. She didn't have the party girl vibe. She looked like she had places to be and things to do. The sci-fi is in the back, she said, pointing. That's the romance section. Unless you were looking for a paperback about a duke who falls in love with his maid. I think I've had enough drama for one lifetime. I joked. Thanks. We started talking. Her name was Dao. She wasn't a bartender or a freelancer. She was a high school English teacher at the local government school. She spoke English better than I did, with a sharp wit that kept me on my toes. I asked her out for coffee. Not dinner. Coffee. Low stakes. My trust issues had trust issues, and I wasn't ready to commit to a full meal. She checked her watch. I have 45 minutes before I have to grade papers. Let's go. We sat at a plastic table on the sidewalk. I waited for the questions. In my experience with Annan, the questions were always a subtle assessment of my net worth. Where do you live? Do you rent or own? What kind of car do you drive? Dao asked me what I was reading. She asked me what I thought about the local coffee beans. She asked me if I missed the cold weather in America. She didn't ask about my money. Not once. When the bill came, a whopping $4, I instinctively reached for my wallet. The muscle memory of being the sponsor was strong. Dao's hand shot out and covered the bill. I get mine, she said firmly. It's $2, I said. I got it. No, she said, looking me dead in the eye. I have a job. I have a salary. I pay for my coffee. You pay for yours. I froze. It was such a small gesture, but it hit me like a freight train. For 2 years with Annan, I had paid for everything, from the house to the lip gloss. The idea that a woman would fight me to pay for a $2 iced latte was alien. Okay, I said, putting my half of the money on the table. Deal. We started dating slowly. Glacially slow. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for the sick buffalo story. I was waiting for the my brother crashed his motorcycle and needs surgery emergency. It never came. 6 months in, we were at the night market. I stopped at a jewelry stall, looking at a nice silver necklace. I thought about buying it for her. Don't, she whispered, tugging my arm. Why? It's nice. It's tourist price, she hissed. Too expensive. Also, I don't need gifts, Jake. If I want a necklace, I buy a necklace. I want you to walk with me and eat satay. That is free. The dynamic was completely upside down. With Annan, I was a utility. I was useful. With Dow, I was just Jake. One Friday night, Dow told me she was going out with her fellow teachers for karaoke. Cool, I said. Have fun. Inside, my stomach clenched. The PTSD from Annan flared up. Karaoke was often code for meeting guys. My brain started spiraling. Should I text her? Should I ask for photos? Should I check her location? I stopped myself. I remembered the night I left the villa. I remembered the GPS dot at the Azure Bay Resort. I remembered promising myself I would never be that guy again. I forced myself to put the phone down and read a book. At 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Dow. Heading home now. My throat hurts from singing bad 80s songs. See you tomorrow for lunch? And then, 5 minutes later, she sent a video. It was her and 3 other female teachers absolutely butchering a Madonna song, laughing their heads off. She didn't have to send that. She didn't owe me an explanation. She sent it because she wanted to share the moment with me. I realized then that transparency isn't something you can demand or buy. It's something that is freely given when someone actually respects you. We moved in together a year later. We split the rent 50/50ths. I tried to pay more because I technically had more savings, but she refused. We are partners, she said. If you pay more, you have more say. I want equal say. So we pay equal. It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. I rebuilt my life in Krabi, but this time, the foundation wasn't built on money or a fantasy of eternal youth. It was built on $2 coffees and Dutch treat dinners. I finally felt safe. I thought the past was dead and buried. I thought the ghost protocol had worked perfectly. But Thailand is a small country. And the thing about ghosts is they have a nasty habit of haunting you just when you stop looking over your shoulder. They say you can't run from your problems, but I'd argue you can definitely drive away from them in a Toyota Hilux, provided you drive fast enough. For 4 years, I lived by the philosophy that the past was a sunk cost. You write it off, you close the ledger, and you move on. I was 46 now. My hair had more salt than pepper, and I had traded the designer polo shirts for local linen button-downs that didn't stick to my back in the humidity. I wasn't Jake the retired tech mogul anymore. I was just Jake, the guy who co-owned The Hub, a co-working space and cafe in Krabi Town. It was a Tuesday afternoon, typical for the rainy season. The sky was threatening to open up, and the air was thick enough to chew. I was behind the counter, troubleshooting the espresso machine. The grinder was jammed again. In my previous life, I solved million-dollar software bugs. Now my biggest adversary was a coffee bean stuck in a burr grinder. And honestly, I preferred the bean. My life was boring. Wonderfully, beautifully boring. I had married Dow a year after we moved in together. We didn't have a wedding at a 5-star resort with fire dancers and a 10-tier cake. We went to the district office, signed the papers, and then went out for boat noodles. It cost us about $3. It was the best meal of my life. We also had a new addition to the team, Maya. Maya was 2 years old, a chaotic whirlwind of energy with my chin in Dow's eyes. She was currently in the back office, supposedly napping, but I could hear the distinct sound of blocks being thrown against the wall. The bell above the cafe door jingled. Be right with you. I called out, my head still inside the espresso machine, just negotiating with the machinery. Hello, Jake. I froze. I knew that voice. It was a voice I hadn't heard in 4 years, except in the occasional nightmare where I forgot to transfer my money out of the joint account. It was a voice that used to sound like music, but now sounded like a debt collector calling on a Sunday. I slowly pulled my head out of the machine and wiped my hands on a rag. Standing on the other side of the counter was Annan. Thailand is a big country, but the Expat coconut wireless is faster than fiber optics. If a white guy moves town, someone knows. If he opens a business, everyone knows. I had suspected this day might come, but I had hoped the universe would lose my forwarding address. Annan looked different. When I left her, she was 26 and glowing with the radiance of someone spending $5,000 a month on skincare and spa treatments. Now she was 30. She was still beautiful. That hadn't changed, but the glow was gone. It was replaced by a sharpness. Her cheekbones looked more prominent, her eyes a little harder. She was wearing a designer handbag, Louis Vuitton, the one I bought her for her 25th birthday, but the strap was fraying at the edge. Her dress was expensive, but it was from a collection 3 years ago. She looked like a depreciation chart in human form. Annan, I said. My voice was calm. My heart rate didn't even spike. I checked my internal dashboard. Panic? No. Anger? No. Pity? Maybe a little. You are hard to find, she said, clutching the bag like a shield. I looked for you a long time. I wasn't hiding, I lied. I just moved. You disappeared, she corrected, her voice rising slightly. Like a ghost. You leave me in that big house with nothing. You embarrass me. I left you with a paid lease and a car, I said, leaning against the counter. And I left because you told me you didn't owe me explanations. I just assumed that meant we were done communicating. She flinched. The memory of that night was clearly still fresh for her, too. I make mistake, she said, shifting her weight. I was young. Stupid. The guy. He was nobody. He steal from me after you leave. My family, we have hard time. Ah, there it was. The pitch deck. The preamble to the funding request. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I actually meant it. I didn't want her to suffer. I just wanted her to be someone else's problem. She took a step closer to the counter, turning on the old charm. She lowered her lashes, tilted her head. The phase one look that used to work on me. Jake, I miss you. We have good life before. Maybe we can talk. Maybe dinner. She looked around the cafe. It was nice, modern, filled with digital nomads typing on MacBooks. She was calculating the revenue. She was looking at me, seeing that I looked healthy and stable, and she was recalculating my net worth. I don't think that's a good idea, Annan, I said. Why? She pressed. You still angry? After 4 years? We're good together. I forgive you for leaving if you forgive me for... She didn't get to finish the sentence. The door to the back office slammed open. Papa, a tiny missile in a floral dress launched itself into the room. Maya ran behind the counter, completely ignoring the employee's only sign, and latched onto my leg like a barnacle. Papa, juice. Now, she demanded, holding up an empty sippy cup. I picked her up, settling her on my hip. She immediately started pulling on my ear. Say please, I told her. Please, she squealed. I looked up at Annan. The color had drained from her face so fast it looked like a special effect. She stared at Maya. She stared at the way Maya was holding my ear. Then she looked at me. She did the math. In her mind, I was supposed to be the pining, lonely ex-husband sitting in a dark room regretting my decision to leave the goddess. I was supposed to be waiting for her to come back and save me from my solitude. Instead, she was looking at a man who hadn't just moved on. He had replaced the entire operating system. You? She whispered, her voice trembling. Yeah, baby. This is Maya, I said, bouncing her slightly. Maya, say hi to the lady. Maya hid her face in my neck. No, she's shy, I said, not apologizing. Annan looked like she had been slapped. The reality of the last 4 years hit her all at once. I wasn't just gone. I was unavailable. The position of Jake's wife wasn't vacant. It had been filled, and the new hire had tenure. Does she? Annan pointed a shaking finger at the child. Does she have mother? Before I could answer, the back office door opened again. Dao walked out. She was wearing her glasses, holding a stack of invoices, looking efficient and beautiful in that effortless way she always did. Jake, the supplier, raised the price on almond milk again. We need to. She stopped when she saw Annan. Dao is smart. She knew the story. She had seen the photos I kept in a sealed folder on my drive. She looked at Annan, then at me, then at Maya. She didn't scream. She didn't get jealous. She walked over, stood next to me, and put a hand on my back. A united front. Hello, Dao said pleasantly, in the tone she used for unruly students. Can I help you? Annan looked at Dao. Then she looked at me holding Maya. Then she looked at her fraying Louis Vuitton bag. The silence in the cafe was deafening. Even the grinder had stopped making noise. Annan stammered. Wrong place. Sorry. She turned around and walked out the door, almost tripping over the welcome mat. I watched her go. I waited for the triumphant feeling, the vindication. But there was none. It was just sad. She was a ghost from a deleted timeline. Who was that? Dao asked, though I knew she knew. That, I said, kissing Maya on the top of her head, was a glitch in the code. But I think it's patched now. Dao smiled and took the sippy cup. Good. Fix the espresso machine. We have customers. Understood, I said. And for the first time in my life, when I said that word, I was smiling. I watched through the glass front of the cafe as Annan stood on the sidewalk for a moment. She looked lost, like a tourist who had gotten off at the wrong bus stop and realized her map was from 1999. It started to rain, because of course it did. This was a tropical melodrama, and the sky had a sense of timing. She held that fraying Louis Vuitton bag over her head and scurried down the street, disappearing around the corner toward the taxi stand. I waited for the emotional crash. I waited for the anger, the regret, the sudden urge to chase after her and demand answers about the guy, the money, the lies. But all I felt was the annoyance of having to recalibrate the coffee grinder. So, Dao said, adjusting her glasses and looking at the door where Annan had vanished. That was the Golden Cage girl? That was her, I said. She wears too much foundation for this humidity, Dao noted clinically. It was melting. I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a genuine belly laugh. Yeah, I guess it was. Dao took Maya from my arms. I'm going to put the monster down for her nap again. If she wakes up, she's your problem. And fix the machine. The digital nomads need their caffeine or they'll start writing bad Yelp reviews. She kissed me on the cheek, quick, dry, affectionate, and walked back into the office. That was it. That was the confrontation. No screaming match. No throwing vases. No dramatic ultimatums. Just a practical assessment of makeup choices and a reminder to do my job. In the days that followed, the Expat Coconut Wireless, the network of gossiping retirees and bar owners, filled in the blanks for me. Apparently, Annan didn't leave Krabi immediately. She stayed at a guest house for 2 days, asking around about me. She learned that I wasn't rich in the flashy sense anymore. I didn't have the villa. I didn't have the luxury SUV. I worked for a living. I think that hurt her more than the new wife. To Annan, money was the scorecard. If I was working, I must be losing. She couldn't comprehend that I was working because I enjoyed building something real, rather than just financing a lifestyle that was secretly rotting from the inside. I also heard about what happened after I left Phuket 4 years ago. The guy she cheated with, the Azure Bay Resort guy, he was a promoter for a club. He stuck around exactly as long as the money in the joint account lasted. Once the cash flow dried up and the landlord evicted her, he ghosted her faster than I did. The difference was, I left her a car and a clean break. He left her with debt and a broken ego. Knowing that didn't bring me joy. It just confirmed the data. The algorithm had predicted the outcome perfectly. A week later, I was closing up the cafe. It was late, the lights were dimmed, and the chairs were stacked on the tables. Dao and Maya had gone home early. I sat on a stool by the window, looking out at the quiet street. 4 years ago, I sat in a dark living room in Phuket, terrified of the silence. I was terrified of being alone. I was terrified that if I stopped paying for the noise, the parties, the gifts, the sick buffalo surgeries, the silence would eat me alive. But I realized now that I had it all wrong. The silence wasn't a void. It was peace. Annan had screamed at me that she didn't owe me explanations. She thought she was asserting her dominance. She thought she was setting the rules. But all she did was give me the permission I didn't know I needed. She taught me that I didn't owe anyone my dignity. I didn't owe anyone a debate about my worth. And I certainly didn't owe a cheater a second chance, just because we had history. I pulled out my phone. No unread messages. No drama. No GPS trackers. Just a text from Dao. Maya is asleep. I made pad krap pao. Come home. Don't forget to buy milk. I smiled, grabbed my keys, and locked the door. Annan was right about one thing. She wasn't my employee, and I wasn't her boss. But for the first time in my life, I was the CEO of my own happiness. And business was booming. And that, folks, is how Jake turned a midlife crisis into a midlife masterclass. He took the lemon life gave him, realized the lemon was actually rotting from the inside, and decided to just go grow his own orange tree instead. The moral of the story? I don't owe you an explanation, is a powerful weapon. Be careful when you point it at someone who is ready to pull the trigger on a new life. Sometimes the most devastating response to disrespect isn't a scream. It's a simple understood, followed by the sound of a zipper on a duffel bag. If you enjoyed watching a man professionally debug his life and delete the malware, smash that like button. It helps the algorithm find more people who need to hear this. And subscribe if you want to be here for the next story. I've got a feeling it's going to be a wild one. See you in the next one. Stay peaceful, stay petty.